Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. Brandon Croucher with Delight Cafe CBD, Brett Gordon with Businesses Are People Too. We are honored to have you back. This is One Square at a Time. We take the leadership perspective from the King's perspective of how to lead your team while only being able to move one square at a time. Today, Brett has the superhero picked. And I had to be honest, I had to go watch this movie to be able to understand what we were going to get into. And he was like, "Oh, I'll tell you which tool it's going to be now if you want." And I made him wait so I can get a surprise on here because this is going to be an interesting one. This is going to be a fun one. Brett, how are you, my friend?
Doing awesome. Trying to, as I put the background together here, I was trying to figure out, okay, what shirt should I wear? What shirt doesn't match? And I was like, okay, do I have something that kind of matches? And I was like, okay, I got my red shirt. It's my Air Force, and it kind of ties to Baymax 2.0,
Yeah.
Baymax 2.0. And we'll get into a little bit of the story because not everybody has seen or heard of Big Hero 6.
Correct.
Now I was living in California and I love going to Disneyland. And for a while, one of the main theaters that they had there was actually just like a 5 or a 10-minute introduction to Big Hero 6 as they were leading up to its release. And I was like, when I first saw it, I was like, or just saw the poster board. I was like, I don't know. And then when I watched it, I was like, okay, I got to watch this movie. And I love this movie. And it's a movie that you can show to your kids for the most part. There's no swearing or anything like that in it. There is a little bit of violence in it, but I think that, in respect to where children are developing in this day and age, even the violence in here is probably less than they see when they watch the news, when you're watching the news on TV. So I think that this is a great movie for kids. And it also really draws on how science nerds can be cool. And I grew up and I was I was in the nerd group. Now I tried hard to kind of fight against that to a certain extent, in that I was also good at sports. I didn't play organized sports like in high school, but I played a lot of sandlot sports. I played community leagues, softball, those kinds of things. In fact, when we were kids, 12-inch softball, the kind of softball most people are used to, where you play with a glove, and it's a bigger ball, but it's not the Chicago style 16-inch. We couldn't become a team if we were not 18 years or older. So we actually all got fake IDs so that we could, because we were like 16, and we formed a team and we played in the adult league softball.
And you were 16, not 18, so you're
Right.
lying to get in there. I'm assuming there's people that are like 30s, 40s playing as well.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. Okay. How'd you
So
guys do?
we got our ass kicked, but but it was one where I think it was good for us to get together. We had a very diverse team in terms of, I grew up in a town where my best friends were Black, Puerto Rican, Mexican, so we had a team that was consisted of that as well. We had some hotheads on the team. We had some, I don't get animated in terms of, win, loss. I don't particularly care to make mistakes myself, and I'll get down on myself, but I don't point out other people, and I don't talk shit, no trash talking. And I think that to me is still something that I hold internally as something that, don't talk shit to make somebody else feel bad or to try to make yourself feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Prove your value through your actions and what what you deliver to your team, what you deliver to society, how you perform, and stay true to yourself. But you don't need to talk trash in order to be able to be the best that you can be. Normally, when you're talking trash, you have something that you have as a weakness or insecurity, and you're trying to project in order to make yourself feel better. So anyhow, we got this team, and like I was saying, I was also in the nerd group. So when I was in high school, the guys I hung around with, we liked going to physics class. We liked, we took a field trip ourselves on a Saturday to drive from Waukegan to Chicago, which is about an hour away. We went there to go see this symposium on the premier scientists that understood black holes at that time.
That's not nerdy. That's cool.
Well, it can be cool. It all depends on how you look at it. It's also nerdy if you say, well, you took your Saturday and you went down to go learn at something about black holes. What are you talking about? But a funny story about that is, and this is the kind of thing that, here we got 4 of the top kids in high school in a car going down to Chicago to try to find this place where the symposium is. And we're following the map, and we're trying to figure out where we are in the city, and we're looking at the street signs and trying to match that to the map. And we see this, one of the guys sees this sign. He's like OB Lane, find OB Lane on the map, find OB. So he's looking for OB Lane, OB Lane, OB Lane. I'm like, what do you mean OB Lane? I said, there's no OB Lane. It said obey lane signal. So we got 4 of the smartest guys in a car looking at this map for OB Lane. It was obey lane signal. It was OB Lane. And we laugh about it even today.
Oh, that's funny. So this is a time when you actually had a map too. It's not like MapQuest where you print it off and you're hoping to get the right directions.
Oh no, and if you remember those maps, they were big ass maps that you're opened up in the front seat, you can't see out your windshield.
Right? Yeah. Oh, I didn't know I was buying the state of Ohio's actual dimension. It's like, geez, Louise. Yeah, I've done that many times. Like getting lost like that is totally different. And like that is hysterical because you'll be looking and it's like, okay, so OB Lane, okay, got it. Okay. Yeah, I can picture people doing that. Yes, that's funny.
So anyhow, I think that over the course of time, there's still the nerds and the jocks and stuff like that. Though I think that over the course of time, especially with the rise of technology, a lot of the nerdiness or the nerds not being cool have kind of changed to a certain extent. Nerds may not be cool when they're in school, but when they're behind their screens and doing their thing and playing video games and stuff, then they become cool.
Mm-hmm.
And now, heck, you can watch sports on TV, but you can watch people competing in video games on TV too.
Flying drones.
Or flying drones. And in fact, that's one of the skill sets now, especially, me being from the Air Force back in the day, a pilot needed to be able to fly and physically be in the plane and fly. But now one of the skill sets needed by a pilot is not to be able to actually physically be in the plane, but to be able to control a drone behind screens. And the skill sets that people learn as they're playing the video games are highly in demand for that type of a position in the military and in commercial industry as well. Think about all of the concepts of the drones delivering packages and stuff. Somebody's got to control those, and they're sitting somewhere in the world. They don't have to be in the city that they're delivering in. They just need to be connected to the drone and know the map of the city, and they can fly to wherever they're going.
That's crazy. All right, so I do have a weird question since we are on a sidetrack really quick. Are you still not allowed to fly, even if it's a drone, if you're colorblind?
I think that the chances are yes, because certain screens that are developed for drones are developed on the airplanes, to fly it and as a pilot or as a navigator do have alerts and lines and things that are going to be designated by color as well. So if you have a green red color blindness, that could become a very serious thing if you can't differentiate between green go, red stop, or
That's true.
danger and okay, safe.
Yeah.
So I think that the answer probably is yes. um,
Darn.
and
I'm
so
not colorblind. I was just rooting for people who are.
yeah, well, I think that that doesn't mean that they're not able to do certain things, but there may be some limitations in terms of even in the world today. I mean, if this is a black and white screen behind me, then color blindness really wouldn't matter, right? Everything would
True.
be grayscales and things along those lines. But if you look at the screen behind me, it's highly colorful. And if you have color blindness for certain types of colors, then it wouldn't appear as dynamic as it does now. So
That's true.
yeah. So anyhow, I think that this movie was really cool because it made nerds into superheroes, or superheroes became, or nerds became superheroes.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to really bring out here is that everybody is a superhero. We talk about this all the time. In every one of our sessions, we're really saying everybody has superhero powers. And you may not be a superhero, but you do have the superpower.
Hmm.
So as we look at Big Hero 6, it actually is identifying that there's 6 superheroes as a part of the team, which is Baymax, the white and the red, when he got his armor, along with Hero, the one who actually kind of made him into this superhero, although his brother actually created Baymax initially. And then you've got the other uh, students or people that were in the lab with Hero's brother. Hero's brother's name is Tadashi. And they each had their own thing that they were developing in the lab. Um, uh, well, I end up pointing to the one guy who really didn't develop anything. He was a comic book guy. He loved comic books, and he was the school mascot, and he used to wear his onesie all the time and flipping the sign, and that was kind of his thing, to be able to flip the sign to get the crowd to cheer and everything. So
That's me. That was my character. Sarah in that moment was like, "That's you if you were that character. If this movie had a character that resembled you." And I'm like, "Yup, I spin fire. I wear onesies. That's me."
So you've got that's eventually going to be his costume, but at first he was the nerd who loved comic books, right? And he was in the lab just because he thought everything was so cool, and then he'd come up with these ideas that he tried to get these guys to develop, and they're like, no, that's not science. And he's like, but it's cool. And then you've got like Gogo Tamago. That's the one in yellow here.
Yes.
And she was the super badass girl. She was a scientist, but she was a badass girl who was all herself. She wasn't gonna take shit from anybody, and she created this really cool stuff with electromagnetism in order to have bikes that have no friction, and the ability to use electromagnetism to create things. And then you had Honey Lemon, right? Yeah.
I was like, I don't remember her name, and I was like trying to figure out how I can sneak in behind there and Google it. And then I'm like, how do I even Google this? So yeah, go ahead.
That's Honey Lemon, and she was able to create some really cool stuff that was able to take metals and basically make them ultra brittle so that they could just kind of explode into powder. And
Yep.
that comes in really in some of the things that they do when they become superheroes. You've got Wasabi here, who created these plasma lasers to cut things and so forth, and they become part of his super tool or superhero tool. And Baymax, who is a very innocent, created fluffy, marshmallowy kind of a character. Actually, kind of like me right now.
So if we get you to take your shirt off, that's
No,
when
you
you
don't want
become
to see
Baymax.
that. Now, if I put a white shirt on, I would look just like him.
Okay.
But so kind of going back to bringing people up on the story. So here's these geeks, nerds in a laboratory. Tadashi is the brother who created Baymax, and he was in the lab. And Hiro is actually like a boy genius. He skipped a whole bunch of grades in school, and then he really got into using or creating microbots using advanced technology and creating bots to be able to compete in bot fights. That was what he was doing. So he's still in basically high school age, young high school age, and he's competing with adults in these bot fights that he's betting on. And this little kid comes into a bot fight in, kind of, you think of a dark back alley, and this is where they're doing these bot fights because it's illegal to bet on bot fights. And he comes in and he's like, can I compete? And he's got this little doll in his hand that he created, and everybody looks at it and they just laugh at it like, this is, and they try to shoo him away, but he shows he's got money. So they let him in, and he plays the typical sandbagger type person. And first time out, his bot gets destroyed quick. And then he's like, well, can I try again? And they're like, well, no, get out of here. But he hands out a wad full of money. And he's like, I got more money. And he lays it out there and like, oh, okay, well, I'll take your money too. And this time when he puts his bot out there, which is still the innocent looking bot, but he opens up his control pad and flips a switch, and it goes from this innocent looking bot doll face to evil killer bot face. And within seconds,
it spins its head around.
Yeah, spins its head around. Evil bot. And within seconds goes out there and basically rips the arms off of any bot that he's competing against, tears the head off, and then comes back down to the ground, turns his face around, and he's the happy-go-lucky little bot again. But the guys didn't like that, and anyhow, that he gets chased because they feel he took advantage of them, and then they end up in jail because they bet on the fight. But that's all kind of leading up at the very beginning to help people understand kind of where they were coming from. But let's get back to Baymax, the white character, the Pillsbury Doughboy kind of character. And
he's kind of lightweight. Like from the movie, he was just, I don't want to say a pushover, but he really was. Like he just was there. He was genuine. He was nice. He was enjoying being a part of them, I would say, like being included, but he wasn't anything that he wasn't like the young girl that is the yellow. I can't think of her name. Like he wasn't creating something like that, and he's not melting things, and he's not like the creator on that. Like he designing things. He's like a big pillow.
Right. And so here's this Baymax. He's created by Tadashi, which is Hiro's brother. And Hiro doesn't even know about him until Tadashi tries to get him into college and shows him that being in the lab is actually really cool. But he shows him Baymax, and Baymax is developed to be a personal healthcare companion. Mm-hmm. So that he's programmed to be able to scan a person, identify if they've got any kind of temperatures, if they have hormonal imbalances, if they've got injuries, and then to treat those, right? And he was created to be very empathetic, caring, kind, logical, and also very literal, meaning he had his programming. He understood the meanings of the words that he had. But if you went outside of those or you used those terms as slang, he didn't follow, right? He is very innocent. Um, but he was also this fluffy outside vinyl exterior. Inside the structure was carbon fiber and was able to lift 1,000 pounds. So in that case, I kind of say, don't judge a bot by its cover.
Ah, ba-dun-dun.
So, so here's this really superhuman strength bot that looks like a fluffy pillow, so can be very deceiving. Anyhow, there's somebody in the lab, actually the Professor Callahan, who really sees the value of the microbots that Hiro created, and wants Hiro to come in and be a part of the lab. He gets him into the lab because Hiro competes and creates this amazing mind control microbots, which are just little bitty things, but when you have millions of them, they work together to create whatever vision is in the mind of the person wearing the controller. And you could create these stilts that you could walk across people, because they would just form these columns that you would walk across, let's put it that way. Or they could build the vision that Hiro had is they could build a building in a fraction of the time that people could, because they just all work together and they've got almost no limitations in what they can do. So super cool stuff. And this professor really likes it. And then while just before Hiro gets to be really in college, he and his brother are leaving, and the university, that building explodes. And Tadashi, his older brother, finds out that the professor is still in the building. So he runs into the building, and then the building just completely gets annihilated in an explosion and kills Hiro's brother, who created Baymax. But Baymax wasn't there, so Hiro was able to have Baymax and didn't even know how to even really work with him at the time. Anyhow, I got to get past all this, or we're going to go through a whole thing without.
I'm like, he's going to explain this whole movie right now if I just sit here quietly.
So anyhow, Hiro is like trying to figure out, why his brother died, and he starts to develop more of the programming and learning more about what Baymax does. And Baymax is still this really cool toddler-like thing that goes around, but Hiro actually starts to look at him as something beyond that, something that could actually be used to try to track down what Hiro thinks is the actual villain in the movie, which he's actually wrong. But he creates an outer shell for Baymax, which is first just like carbon fiber stuff, and he teaches Baymax how to do karate. But that's the end of it. And then the whole group goes out and they're trying to find this super villain, and they almost drown in a car, but Baymax saves them. And at this point in time, this is when everybody's like, we've got a real villain here, and we need to do something about it. And Hiro actually creates all of the costumes, or I wouldn't say costumes, but the outfits, and develops the technology, or has them develop their technology to be the superhero with the superpower. Right?
Yep.
So now they all have superpowers. They're out there. Their goal is to capture this villain. And Hiro puts this red suit on to.
It's tough to do that. Yeah. Trust me, I know.
Red suit on, and this is Baymax 2.0.
Right.
And with Baymax 2.0, it's no longer just karate. He's actually integrated the ability to fly. So now here Baymax can fly, and he's got an ability to scan that's 1,000 times greater than he had before, so he can track down things. He's got the ability to actually have a fist that is rocket thrust uh, powered, so that he could actually punch through a wall by just uh, shooting his hand essentially out as his weapon. So becomes kind of um, a real superhero in terms of what he's capable of doing. But he's still got this mindset of, I'm here to help. I'm here to, my programming prohibits me from hurting a human. Um, and eventually that kind of gets in the way. So I'm not going to give the rest of the story because it'll take forever. And I want people to actually watch this and keep in mind what we're going to be talking about here. Because what I'm trying to bring out is that, again, everybody's got a superpower. And I'm going to concentrate more on Hiro and Baymax, and Baymax primarily, which, thinking about him in terms of his real powers and what he does, he's funny. He's funny because he's so innocent, and he's big, so he can't get through windows all the time, and there's all kinds of things around that. But the innocence is actually a power.
Yes, I can see that.
And I find that to be one of, even the nerds are, to an extent, they're innocent in terms of a lot of the bad things that go on outside of the lab, out in the real world. They're so focused on their world of science and what they're doing. And this is not uncommon for anybody. When you're focused on whatever it is that you're focused on, you don't oftentimes see outside of your world. You've got blinders on, and you don't see outside of the blinders. So you don't even recognize that there's evil villains out there. Why would there be evil villains? Why? We're having fun creating technology that's really cool for us, and hopefully for humanity. And you've got this character in Baymax that is here to be a healthcare companion, to help people, everything designed around that. and he's got no malice. He's
Mm-hmm.
got no vengeance. He's got none of that. But Hero, after his brother dies and he thinks he knows who the villain is, he starts to become vengeful. And that's kind of his driver for creating the suit that he puts on Baymax, and gives him these powers so that he can help him to track down and possibly even kill the villain.
Correct.
And Hero started going down this spiral of, I need revenge. I need revenge. I've got this person. I think this is, in his mind, he knew who the villain was, but it wasn't. But he was out there to really destroy him. And Baymax is still very innocent. But
Mm-hmm.
Hero actually created a new chip that created, also in his mind, put into Baymax's program an ability to be evil,
Mm-hmm.
to be a killer. And this is something we need to think about. So if you have a baby, the baby is born into the world innocent,
Mm-hmm.
like Baymax. And as they start to learn, they just they just learn from what they experience. And for the most part, they're very, like I say, innocent. They're very literal. They're logical in their own way. Um, they are very empathetic, really. I mean, little babies can detect, just like an animal, like a dog or a cat can detect distress or stress in their owner or parent. A baby can do that. So they're very much similar to Baymax.
Mm-hmm.
And then over the course of time, based on what they learn, the environment that they're around, what their parents, what their siblings, what their friends talk about and teach, they start to go from this very innocent baby to potentially going down a path that can take them into a very mean or criminal life because of what they were fed. They hate, prejudice, racism. Those are all things that are learned.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that evil programming that is coming in over time, not what they were born with. They weren't born to see the difference between black and white and yellow and red and brown and in terms of skin color. To them, it's just a person. It's hopefully a caretaker. As a baby, all they're looking for is somebody who's going to be able to make them feel comfortable, feed them, clean them, that type of thing, and love them.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about babies or you think about puppies or anything else, they're very much like Baymax, in that he looks so innocent and he looks at you and it's so cute. And what do you want to do? You just want to grab them and hug them and hold them. And that's what babies are there for. I mean, that's how babies survive, through that ability to, if you want to call it, manipulate their parents by doing cute things. They learn, if I do a cute thing, I'm going to get attention. They also learn, depending on how the parents respond, they also learn that if I cry like a maniac, I'm going to get attention too.
Yep.
So babies influence parents and parents influence babies' development. So if parents are always like, oh, as soon as he cries, I got to pick him up. Guess what? The baby learns. If I cry, you're going to pick me up. That's what I want you to do. So I'm going to cry. I know I can do this. They learn that very quickly in their very first days of their lives. They start to learn these things. But the innocence is what they start with. And that's what Baymax has. And then Hiro creates this ability to be mean, to be aggressive, to be essentially even a killer. But luckily, Baymax's core programming still kind of steps in and is like, you know, that's not my programming. I cannot injure a human. And all of the other people from the lab said, hey, we're on board with you catching this villain, but we're not on board with you killing this villain. We're gonna leave you. So this is where teams can really help what amounts to the leader, which was Hiro, to lead the team. But if the team isn't going to support you because you start to really go out off on the deep end, then you either need to decide at that point in time, do I need to step back and rethink the direction that I'm going? And that's what happened to Hiro. He actually stepped back and realized, you know, this is my brother and me and Hiro are not really here to kill anybody. We're here to, I got to step my revenge desire back,
Mm-hmm.
and become one that just wants to bring justice.
I actually, excuse me. One of the notes, it's kind of interesting that I wrote was how Baymax was not able to even power down until Hiro said that he was satisfied with his care. He was programmed to care for others and have compassion. And I just think of I think of my niece. She's 9 right now, and she did not cut her hair her first 8 years of her life because she wanted to donate her hair to a cancer patient. No one she knew. She just wanted to help people. And I think of how many people get into their own ways, and how Baymax is like a child. Like, they don't understand what's going on. They don't understand what's happening throughout the day, like you're saying, and the instilled anger of, oh, the day sucked, the day was this, that negative mindset, it just keeps pushing whether we know it or not. I use the phrase at my house, how we all have different hats. We've all heard that, but like, I'm not the energy that ruined your day. If I called you, yelled at you, threw something at you, whatever, yes, that's my fault. But when you come home and I'm making dinner, or you call me and you just start yelling at me for no reason, after we hang up the phone, that energy, I have the choice what to do. And if I had kids, I could be taking that out on them and yelling at them for just being kids playing. And a lot of people don't realize they do this. You might yell at your significant other over something small as not doing the dishes. And I think that the Baymax shows that we all keep giving to other people, and there's empathetic people, and there's givers and takers, you know. And he shows that as a giver, he's giving of himself. I want to be there. I want you to be better. I want you to feel better. He's reading the body. You're not having enough water. You're not this. But he can't even turn down himself without the approval. Yeah, it's just interesting to me, like how, when you think about it, how that relates back to kids too. You have to show compassion. You have to show appreciation. You have to show love. And the truth is, there's a lot of people who don't realize they come home and just dump their energy onto everything. And I think it's funny because you even mentioned pets, like how our pets act like us at the beginning. Baymax was not angry. He was built to be a helper. And until Hiro had revenge on his heart, he had no change. He was not going to change. You know what I mean? And I just think that's an interesting thing for me, because I was like, as people grow, you got to remember, you're not knowing what you're putting on others. You're not knowing what you're doing. And what Baymax taught us is, with the energy that was given, it doesn't matter if you're taking or giving. You need to make sure that you separate the two, and you need to have compassion without leaving it on others. You know what I mean?
Right. And it was really interesting because like you say, and this is something that innocence has, but we develop over the course of our life too, is the ability to turn on and turn off different aspects of ourselves.
Correct.
And oftentimes we're unable to stop doing something or pull away from doing something until we receive an external stimulus from somebody or something. And whenever we internally are dependent on an external stimuli, we lose control. And when we try to control that, we get frustrated. And when we try to control that, we can go overboard. And when you cannot control what's happening outside of you all the time.
Correct.
Most of the time, you cannot control it. You can influence it, like a baby crying. They influence it, but do they actually control the parent? No. The parent controls themselves. Oftentimes, it appears that the baby's controlling the parent. But really, the parent's making that decision, and they're responding in a way that's either empowering or disempowering to themselves and to their child. And the same thing is going on with Baymax. But he's got a strict programming, structured programming, which is a little bit different than like the human, because the human is kind of an unstructured way, and it kind of develops over time. And I would venture to say that Baymax does kind of develop a little bit over time, but for the most part, it's all based on his programming and the decision logic that's in the programming. Beyond that is when he really doesn't, that innocence becomes also confusion. I don't understand what you meant by saying that, he says.
Yeah.
And in fact, we didn't start off the way that I said we were going to start off with the fist bump, but
we'll end with it. Like, we'll be
boom,
like, boom.
and then he goes, ba la 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 la. And the reason he does that is because he can't do the sound that Hiro was trying to teach him, that when you do a fist bump, you go, psh. Instead, he learns ba la 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 as a very innocent way of doing the same type of thing. But he was restricted in how he could say something because of his programming. It wasn't part of the programming capabilities. So I think that those are things that we need to be aware of in life, is that we as humans are not that structured. Sometimes we do take on belief systems that become very structured like that. Like, this is what I am supposed to do according to the Bible, according to my mother, according to my school, according to my organization. This is the situation, this is how I respond. Guess what? Each situation actually has little nuance differences, if not major differences. And that trained response is not necessarily the one that is appropriate or best for that particular situation. And that's where in the human mind, you're like, okay, I don't have just A or B. I've got A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J to be able to choose from. I just oftentimes don't even know that I have C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K in as an option.
Right.
So I still
How
don't
many times are all of our thoughts in one basket? Like, we're keeping everything in one area. This is the only way it can be, not open to what else there might be.
Right, right. And we are the ones that actually have control over our own programming, the things that we allow into our lives and to influence our lives.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to take conscious responsibility for what chips we put into our body, like Baymax, or how we reprogram things within our body, how we program things. As a baby, as an innocent, we don't have that. It just gets fed to us. We process in a very immature computer mind, and we respond based on the way we act and the response that we get to us.
Right. I could agree with that. Actually, I think it's funny you make the comment about the chip, having the microchip. Do you remember where the microchip was located? Where his programming was centered?
His heart.
Bingo. And I thought that was an interesting thing that was an adult theme for a kid's movie. And I thought that was really interesting because when you really break it down, where does the core of your beliefs come from? It's what you believe. It's like that inner feeling, when you're standing, do I do this or this? And one feels good, one feels bad. And you're like, it's that inner, that I can't think of the word, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like the inner dialogue with yourself. Your gut's always right. Trust your gut. So it comes from inside here. And I think that's interesting because that's the programming, even for a movie with a robot. The programming that's there is not the programming of your normal. It's this robot's here for health. This robot's here for that. And it's in the heart. How many of us are created like that, but then create a callus blocking us from being able to be the best us?
Yeah, oftentimes it is our logical programming that starts to take over from the emotional feeling of how to respond to a situation.
Mm-hmm.
And we oftentimes override that queasy feeling in our gut when we're making a decision that may not be the right decision for us, but we're using our programming in our logical programming to override that.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong. But there's this whole concept now of the body mind. It is not just all centered here. It's centered here in your gut. It's centered here in your heart. It's centered in your extremities, even. So when I work with teams or people, and I'm like, how does that make you feel? Or when you're feeling strong, how does that make you? How do you feel strong? And then where in your body do you feel that strength? And some people will be like here, and some people will be like here, and some people will be like here, because different people do have different centers that are where they feel their strength, or they feel their weakness, and they feel their abilities. So understanding that then enables you to also create triggers in yourself, that if you're going down the wrong path, or you want to find out which direction to go, touch it, feel it, and
Hmm.
and
Eh, I
believe
might
it.
be. I'm gonna be using this later today, just so you know. I'm writing the blog post. Make that as my note. I gotta add that in my to-do list to finish today. Finish the blog. On Mondays, I do Mental Health Mondays,
Mhm.
and um, I self-talk
Yeah.
is a big thing. So like when you say touch it, feel it, get there, know it. I think it's interesting because truthfully, when I think of self-talk, they've been doing a lot more studies on this. It's I can't do this. I don't know what to do. I don't understand. I. But the thing is, switch one word in that. Switch I to your name.
Right.
Brandon can do this.
Mm.
Brandon, how do you do this? Brandon, what do you need to do this? Brandon, da da da. Or you can do this. Believe, like, it's changing that word from I, which isn't meant to sound negative. I can be an ego. I can be so many things, but changing that perception of exactly what you're really wanting to get out of that negative space.
Well, what you're kind of doing is you're stepping out of your body and
Bingo.
looking at it. And from an outsider's perspective looking in, you have a totally different perspective, and you don't have those same emotions tied to it. And that's the critical piece, because emotions really are the greatest drivers and influencers of any decisions that we make. So if you can pull yourself out by then saying Brett or Brandon, then you are looking at yourself as opposed to being yourself. And you're also taking away that internal responsibility for having to make a different decision that may not be the one that you would normally make, because you're actually being your own mastermind.
Yes, that's funny you put it like that. That's what I'm trying to go for. You know what I mean? Like it's taking control of your mind. Um, eh, yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to teach myself so I can help others.
Yeah, absolutely. And different people react and respond to different personalities and things like that. And that's why I think it's so cool of what we do, because I come at it from one perspective. You've got a different perspective on working through the same things. You're going to connect and with a certain group better than I'm going to connect. Together, we can connect with a lot more. And because of the feedback and so forth, we're able to relate, or people can relate to us in different ways, which is really the key to being able to learn. It's how you are responding to the external stimuli that are essentially what you're being taught, right? So you've got your visual, you got your auditory, you've got your tactile, and you've got your digital. And if you don't touch on each one of those, there's going to be a certain group that's not going to be as connected or get as much out of what you're saying, because it's not reaching them in a way that they need to be reached
Right.
to be most impactful. And that kind of leads into how I was going to leverage this team a little bit. And that is when Hiro was building and helping them to essentially create their superhero um, outfits or their superhero uniforms. Um, it was all about looking at the natural geniuses and talents of each individual and then building on that.
Yep.
And this is how leaders can best build their teams, and how you can best build yourself is when you're leveraging your natural genius and your natural talents, which oftentimes we don't even know what they really are, or can't put it into words or into a model that connects us with everybody else around us. But when you create the strongest you create the strongest teams, you create the happiest teams, the most self-motivated teams, and the most self-motivated you, and also the most trusting teams, and the most trust in you. And trust in yourself is integrity.
I agree
Trust,
with that.
trust, and when I say integrity, integrity is what you do when nobody else is watching. Trust is how other people believe you will execute or actually live up to your word, or they know that this is the way that you are. So when something comes up, they can rely on you to do something. But integrity is what you do when nobody else is around. And that can oftentimes be different than the trust that people have in you. Think about it. A simple one that people can relate to is, okay, I just found $10,000 on the ground. Do I turn it in or do I keep it?
You give it to your friend Brandon, and he
See,
will
there
help
you
find
go. And now we know exactly what to do with it. So we've got this now programmed into our body. So
perfect.
perfect. But and then oftentimes that is going to be dependent on the situation. If I found $10,000 in the middle of nowhere where nobody's around, or I was digging in the ground and I found $10,000, is that going to be different than if I found $10,000 lying on a table in a bank that somebody happened to forget, or was in a suitcase or a briefcase that was on a table in the bank? Okay, so now there's a difference in that. Or I found $10,000 on the floor of my casino that I work at. Those are the types of differences, but it's all about integrity and your belief systems and how they come together and how you can justify based on the event, your belief systems, and the situation at the time.
Right.
And remembering also the whole concept of forever for now that we've talked about in the past, and that could change from today to tomorrow depending on other events or things that may come into your life. And so Hiro created a team based on their specific geniuses and capabilities and talents, and came up with an awesome team. But there was one point in time in the movie where the team is getting beat by the real supervillain, which was actually the professor that taught Tadashi. And he actually created this explosion in the building to destroy the microbots that Hiro had created, and then be able to use them to his advantage. But because of that, he actually killed Tadashi. He killed Tadashi, Hiro's brother. And he himself protected himself because he surrounded himself with these microbots, and they protected him against the explosion. Anyhow, they're getting beat by all these microbots. There's just too many of them. There's millions and millions and millions of these little things, and they're attacking each one of them separately. And then Hiro is connected to the rest of the team by headphones, and he's like, use your big brains and think your way around the problem. Look for a new angle. And when they started to get away from just their core, what I think I can do with my superpowers, with my super tools, then they were like, wow, okay, I can do this instead of that. And they defeat, or they break down these microbots. And that was one of the key things where an idea came into Hiro's mind that we can, if we break down the bonds between these microbots, which if you want to think about it, were like magnetically connected to each other, electromagnetically connected, and they were all, working as one. But if you can break that, then they start to, their power goes away.
Yeah.
That they were doing. So in life, I think that that's very important too. And it is to go back into our brains, but I'll also say go back into your heart, go back into your gut, but use the technique that you were just talking about. How do you best look for a new angle? And that is to say, Brandon, how can I potentially do this? How can I do this?
Mm-hmm.
Not, I can't do this, or I'm stuck. There's nothing else I can do. If you step out and you say, Brandon, how can you do this? Then you stimulate your mind to start thinking in different ways. Find a new angle. And when you come at it through a new angle, all of a sudden, new possibilities grow.
Open up.
And where you got frustrated and where you possibly started to really fight back physically or emotionally in your own mind, or taking it out on people around you, if you find that new angle, it relieves that stress. It relieves that stress in yourself. It eliminates that need to take it out on somebody, because that's no longer there. You just came up with a new angle, a new way to deal with your situation. And the way to do that is to step back. And oftentimes we've heard, like, turn around, take a breath, and then you're going to reduce your stress level, and let's bring the intensity of this argument down, right?
Count to 10,
Well,
take 3 deep breaths. Yeah.
Some people are like, oh, I got to go smoke. I wouldn't recommend that, just because I don't.
Well, it depends what you're smoking.
Well,
is it something that's going to calm you down, or is it something that's going to make you angry?
I'd rather say take CBD,
take some Delight Cafe CBD.
Delight.
Add it into your drink, find your calm to rebalance yourself and get back to a delightful situation.
Right. So I think that was a really key thing that came out in the movie is, yes, you've got these amazing super powers, super tools, and you've got these big brains, but you're stuck.
Yeah.
Why are you stuck? Well, because I'm only using them the way I think I need to use them, or the way I was trained to use them. But there's an infinite possibility of other things that can be done. And when you have an infinite source, when you have that internal mastermind that you can draw upon, and take the emotion out of it so that you can just focus on the situation, all of a sudden, what felt like you were handcuffed and had no other choice. That's when people oftentimes say, I've tried everything. No, you didn't. And take that out of your vocabulary completely.
Yep.
Because that's bullshit. You didn't try everything. There's no way that you could have tried everything. So take those generalizations out, step back away by saying, Brandon, Brett, Sally, Joe, how can you do this? And you will have answers coming to you. As Tony Robbins oftentimes says, all I need is within me now. I just need to figure out how to tap into it. I mean, think about it. I got a keg of beer in front of me, but I don't have a tap. Am I going to figure out a way to get into that damn beer? Hell yeah, I'm going to figure it out. It's a matter of saying, Brett, how can I get in here? I don't have the tap. That's all I know how to use is that tap. Well, let me figure out another way, because I want to have a drink of beer.
I mean, when it can be a reward like that, maybe you just don't see the keg in front of you that you need to tap into, that wealth that's in you that you don't even know, that beer that's in you that you don't even know about. Like, I think that's a great way of doing it. Like, everything you need is already within you. Or everything I need is already within me.
Yeah.
Is that what it was?
All I need is within me now.
All I need is within me now. Perfect. I just want to make sure I say it right.
Let the universe feed you what you need. I mean, you've got it there. And if it's not there, there's also this concept that, all of these big brains that have been out there, all of the people that have been in your past, your legacy, and all of the people that have not been directly related to you still have their energy kind of out there. Einstein's energy is out there. It's a matter of being able to attract it and grasp it and use it. Those are the types of things that we have to, when we think that way, we will find that answer. And if we don't find it, we will know somebody who we can talk to and then get them to channel that energy and come up with the answer. It's not all dependent on us. It's dependent on our mastermind, our master community, and that together creates this universal superpower
I agree.
that we can tap into when we need to. And oftentimes, you'll have that happen in your life, whether it be considered a miracle that happened, or something that happens that you don't understand how it happened. Oftentimes it is that you attracted it, or you looked at things from a different angle, and all of a sudden you saw the answer that wasn't there before.
Right. Right.
And in fact, a lot of times when you lose lose your keys in your house, right? And you're going around, you're looking for them, you're looking for them, you're looking for them. And it's like, I looked in this drawer, it's not in this drawer. I looked in that, I looked in this room, I looked in this room. Okay, I'm going back. I looked in the drawer again, went over here, looked over here, look. Take out a flashlight or change your angle that you're looking at each one of those drawers again. And all of a sudden it's going to like pop out. It's like,
Yep.
it was there all the time, but I didn't see it because I had this blockage in my mind that actually didn't allow me to see what was in front of me.
I agree. Sarah all weekend lost her wallet. Couldn't find it. All weekend. We spent the whole weekend. Oh no, where is it? Let's tear the house apart. Da 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 da. Guess where it was?
In her
In the
pocket.
couch where she put her purse earlier in the weekend. When she came home, she tossed it down on the couch. It fell out and fell into the couch cushions. Okay. Her wallet's like this thick. It's like bigger than a cheeseburger, but somehow it falls in between there. We spent all weekend looking for it. What actually made us find it was when we sat down Sunday night and stopped looking. She leaned back, and it's right where she dropped everything to begin with. And she like realized, oh wait, I had to pick some stuff up on Friday. Starts looking through it. It was a different angle, different thought, different mindset, and she was able to find what she needed. Like trust me, we all wanted her to find her wallet because I hate looking for that stuff.
So as we're kind of getting to a close here, innocence to me is the power that I'm really trying to bring out here. There's a tremendous power to being innocent. And in fact, at the very end, Baymax protected Hiro and Abigail, which is the professor's daughter, from being killed by something. And I'll let you watch the movie so that you can see that.
We've told you everything else but the bad guy.
Yeah. So then it comes down to where he had to kind of sacrifice himself in order to really save Hiro and Abigail, and he would not be able to come back with them, essentially kind of through a portal and back to Earth, if you want to look at it that way. But he does so, and it was based on what you were saying. It was his ability to power down, but he couldn't do that until Hiro said, I'm satisfied with my service.
Mm-hmm.
I'm satisfied with my service from you, with Baymax again being that healthcare companion. And he wouldn't stop taking care of you until you said you're satisfied with his service. And Baymax or Hiro had a hard time doing that, but he finally realized he had to, and he did. And Baymax saved him, and he lost Baymax. But at the very end, you find out that Baymax, who saved them by using the fist rocket thruster, in his fist, he put the chip that Tadashi originally created, and has Tadashi in there so that Tadashi, his brother, and Hiro and Baymax are actually still with Hiro, even though he didn't recognize it. And Hiro was able to rebuild a new Baymax and put that chip in, and he's got his brother and Baymax with him. And this is something that we need to remember when it comes to death. The people around us that we oftentimes mourn and are so sad about them dying, we have them still here. We have them still here. We should be celebrating actually the time and what they taught us while they were here. If they wouldn't have been there, then we wouldn't have had all of this that we're mourning over.
Mhm.
So celebrate that. Celebrate their life as opposed to mourning their death, because their life and the way that they impacted you is still here, is still here. And you can draw on that anytime that you want. They are with you forever. So if we take off some of the belief systems that we have, and one of them is about mourning, one of them, um, and this is where the tool comes in. My my tool that I associate with this innocence is an eraser. If you can erase a lot of that BS that no longer serves you, and then open yourself up to create a new empowering belief system, it's like Baymax being reprogrammed. It's like having that chip inside you in its original form. It's that innocence of being open to new ideas. It's that innocence that you don't have blinders because you haven't learned enough to have blinders. So what that does is it opens up the world to you. It
Mhm.
opens up a whole world of different responses. It opens up your mind to allow things to come in because you erased a lot of the blockages that were stopping things from coming in. So to me, that was how I felt innocence really comes into it, and how it can be applied to your life, to your leadership now, is by looking at it. And just like an eraser on a whiteboard,
That's interesting.
once you erase it, what color is it? Baymax white.
I like how you did that.
And now you can start over. You can draw new things. You can, and you're not encumbered by all the shit that was already on the board because you
Right.
just erased it off. You haven't forgotten it. That's still there. You never. I said you cannot not remember. It's going to be there, but you can erase the meaning behind it and place new meanings on it, or you can erase the impact it's having on you and open yourself up. We all live with filters. We all live with belief systems, but when we question them and then we recognize that they're not serving us, erase them. And remember, you have to put something on that board next, because whenever there's a vacuum, whenever you erase something, there's a space. You you have a choice of either actively choosing what goes in that space, or I guarantee something will go into that space. And oftentimes it's not going to be the empowering thing that you want. So recognize that when you erase something, you also need to write something. So have in
Hmm.
mind those empowering things that you are going to fill that gap with, fill that board with, once you erase the stuff that's no longer serving you. And I think with that, you come back to an amazing opportunity. Every day could be like being a newborn.
Mm-hmm.
And how empowering would that be if you didn't have a lot of the blinders and belief systems and negativity and things along those lines, because you chose to erase them. And
Yep.
now you chose to fill it with something that was more empowering. Now, I don't know if you watched the movie all the way to the very end, and this is going to be kind of a spoiler alert,
Uh-oh.
but after all of the credits went through, Fred, the comic book character guy, was actually looking at a portrait of his father. And guess who his father was? I mean,
Who?
who the actor was for his father? Stan Lee.
I did not know that. I did not catch that.
Well, you may not have even watched it because you had to watch a lot of credits before
The
you got
credits,
to
I
that.
didn't watch the end of the credits. The
Yeah.
credits run. I know there's certain Marvel ones that do that.
Well,
So,
this was way at the end, and he gets a chance to see his father. In fact, his father comes back, and his father had been away forever. Another thing about Fred, although he was the class clown and the mascot and everything, they found out that his father was like super rich. and that gave them the resources to be able to create all their uniforms and costumes or superpower tools. But I was like, wow, Stan Lee's in this one too, and I didn't even think about that. But to me, over the course of everything that I'm learning as we're doing this series on superheroes, which a lot of them are Marvel comics, are coming out of Stan Lee's brain. He's a genius. I mean, he took on themes and he took on things that were not popular at the time. I mean, making the Falcon or the Black Panther superheroes at the time was not what was acceptable at the time. But he didn't have those blinders. He had a whiteboard that he continued to fill with massive imagination and creating the X-Men and the Thors and Spider-Mans, and Big Hero 6 actually is a Marvel. I don't know that specifically that Stan created them, but Stan was still a creative part of Marvel.
Yep.
And then he shows up in the meeting, which I thought was really super, or in the movie, I thought that was really super cool.
I think that's awesome. I did not even know that. I think I should probably have to go watch the end again just to see if I can all the way through just fast forward to the credits.
Yeah. That's actually, I gotta let you in on a secret. I did not know that. I didn't watch the credits all the way through until I was doing a little more research, and I was like, wait a second, there's a part of the story that I missed. And I was like, okay, so fast forward all the way through the credits and found that scene. And I was like, super cool, because it also has this funny part, which when you watch the movie, there's some funny things about the way that Fred wears underwear. And
it's not explained till the end.
Well, it's explained. He talks about it at the very beginning.
Okay. I don't remember this.
I wear the underwear. I wear them front, back. I wear them, then I turn them inside out. I wear them front, back.
Yes. So okay. I do remember that.
It comes together as well. So it's really, really cool. But ultimately, what are your thoughts on kind of how I interpreted this movie? And
no, I think you and I had a lot of the same views on certain things. My things were like the Baymax and the chip. I had that. Him not being able to power down, and I had a thing about dreaming big. Hiro did not let that he wasn't in school with his brother or anything slow him down, or that his friends couldn't be superheroes. He didn't let any of that slow him down. Those were little notes I had. I also had think outside the box. Hiro was he dreams, but he's a quick thinker. He had to come up with ideas and things quickly. He had to be creative. He had to think outside the box.
Yeah.
And I think when you take Hiro and Baymax, you take their two traits and you see how we interact with each other. You see how we influence one another. And then in the end, like you were explaining with his brother, you saw how it can go and you can be there with them, like the fist going up. There was a lot in that movie that you don't catch unless you're actually wanting to watch it like that. And I think that more people need to give this movie a try. Go give it a watch and see which character you fit with, because taking that, everybody needs a moment to erase. The saying when you're doing construction is measure twice, cut once. The eraser is a huge thing in construction, and we don't use it enough in our creativity or our lives. So use your Baymax eraser and start fixing and dry erasing and wiping the board clear so you can get your best you.
Yeah, and open up your minds. I think that one of the things that you mentioned just here at the end is where you're saying that, there's think big. But ultimately, at the very beginning, Hiro was not thinking big. He was like, I'm going to make my life fighting bots.
Yeah.
Making money fighting bots. I don't want to go to college. I think college isn't cool. he was dissing his brother. Well, you're going to school every day, and his brother's trying to bring him in. But then when Hiro does go to school into the lab with his brother, that's when he started to think big. He's like, holy cow, look at this technology, look at this technology, look at this technology. And he understood it. And then it was like, why am I stuck just fighting pots? I can create. And that's when the big thinking starts. And then it kind of comes back into small thinking again. When he got into the revenge and so forth, it got to be very focused, very, very narrow thinking in terms of how to do things. And then the team kind of brought him back down into, let's open up this thing. And it's not just about trying to kill that person or get revenge for his brother. It was about getting justice, and it was about doing it fairly. And then his mind opened up again. And then when they were, fighting, and I was saying that use a different angle, that's when he opened up again. So remember, in life, this happens. We're here when we're born. There's no limitations in our minds when we're born. We grow very quickly to understand that there's a lot of limitations. And then as we start to learn more, we grow that there's not so many limitations. And then we get so many belief systems. It's like, oh no, now there's only a limited way to deal with it. And then when we start to erase, we grow again. So life is ups and downs. Life is in and outs. So recognize that, we have that ability to do it as long as we got, unbelievable. I actually have an eraser, which in today's world, you don't see this.
I was looking around after you said it. I was like peeking around my desk, and I'm like, I only have pens. I'm like, I don't have a single eraser within reach, which is really funny though, because my garage is painted chalkboard paint. So I can literally write my ideas out and then erase them so I can start over.
That's sweet. Yeah, I think that, that's what oftentimes is happening today is we do start, and I think they still start in school, when they're teaching you how to write and everything, they start with a pencil. As you start to go up in grades, then it's like, no, I'm too mature for a pencil. I use a pen now.
I only need one take.
Or I need different color pens and all this stuff. But then I remember when I had drafting class, all through school, as I was going through grade school, you learn to print first. Then they try to teach you to write in cursive. Then I take drafting class, and it's like, no, you print again. Very specific, very structured, very neatly print. You draw lightly at first so you can erase. Then you draw with a much harder pressure, because if you draw on a piece of paper with hard pressure, the impression is still in the paper. Remember, the more often that we put something into our brain, the more often that we relate to a belief system, even though it may not be empowering to us, the more we're driving that impression into our brain. So when you erase, sometimes you can erase, but it's still there. So you've got to erase again. In fact, you may have to flip that paper over and erase from the other side in order to push that impression out.
So I'm going to show you something. You ready?
Yeah.
I'm going to teach you something. I guarantee you didn't know this. So on a dry erase board, all right, if you ever had somebody accidentally use a permanent marker on there, do you know how to get rid of it?
Alcohol.
Well, that's one way, but it's not going to completely. It's going to leave that mark and all that.
Yeah.
Take a dry erase marker.
Okay.
Literally just color over it, like completely color over it. There's like just colored. Okay. And then wipe it. It's gone.
Really?
Yep. So take time when because you use the dry erase one. If we're going to take the time to put new stuff up there, if you accidentally put yourself and put a permanent marker up there and you wrote something that you really want to get rid of, just take your dry erase and start coloring over the top of it. And that way, when you wipe it wipes away clean, and you don't have to have that imprint anymore.
Wow.
You know how I learned that? Was my restaurant. Somebody wrote all my specials in permanent marker. And I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you? You know, you wanted to yell at them.
Yeah.
You squirted, so I squirted lemon on it, scrubbed. Squirted alcohol on it, scrubbed. Nothing. Dawn, nothing. Somebody goes, yeah, but use the dry erase marker. And I'm like, what? So I rewrote over everything. Let it sit for like a few minutes, wiped, and it was gone. I'm like, so yeah. So in life, same thing. All right, Brett, you're taking us out. I brought us in. That was the deal this time.
All right, everybody. I hope this has been valuable. I enjoy doing this. I find just so many messages in what oftentimes we look at as sheer entertainment or even kids entertainment, but there are so many messages that are in there that are often conscious and sometimes unconscious by the writers. But it's a way that we can continue to expand our superpowers, of which we all have, but we oftentimes haven't trained ourselves to use them or to even know that we have them. So through what we're doing with one square at a time is drawing those out to be able to build that Batman tool belt, that construction man tool belt, that that military vest, and just fill it full of different tools that you can use to deal with life, which comes at you with many different things, oftentimes from one moment to the next. And if we only have a few tools, we only have a few responses. So what we're offering is a good way to kind of relate to tools, a way to look at things in a different perspective. When you watch these movies that we're talking about now versus the first time you saw them, I bet you see different things. And this is how you open up your mind. So I really hope that you're enjoying what we're offering. I love doing it. I really incorporate this also and tie it back to being a leader and being involved in helping in my personal development as well as others' personal development as a coach, as a partner, is to be able to leverage these types of things in moving our life forward or at an angle or even backward, one square at a time. So I'm Brett Gordon with Businesses Are People Too, and you are?
Brandon Croucher, Delight Cafe CBD.
And we're here, and we'll be back again next week with a new episode.
Almost knocked over Buddha. Sorry.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Take care, and fist bump.
Boom. Right. Brett, it's been a great one, bud.
All right, Brandon. Take care.
You too, buddy.
Bye now.